Now, I remember the time where it was just like, all right, we knew right after the season was over who was going to be the number one pick. But now there is multiple candidates that could sit up there at that top spot. And first of all, I think there is no debate if you're going to go with my first player. If you're going to go with the Triple Crown, Jamar Chase, there is clearly no debate. He checks off the boxes that you want in a 101 pick. He's durable. He's only missed 5 games in his entire career. He obviously is a high talent quality pick at that 101 spot because he demands alpha attention. Those targets are going to be coming his way. He is an elite athlete when it goes out there and performs at the level that he does. Now, if T. Higgins decides to move on, I think there is no real effect to Jamar Chase himself or the Bengals offense. I'm pretty sure they have a plan of what they want to do with T. Higgins. I prefer that they keep him in place because we already seen how this offense can hit on all cylinders when everybody is healthy on the field. We saw earlier this season the Bengals had their traditional slow start to the season. So for Jamar Chase to even put up the Triple Crown that he did with the slow start, with an addition of missing games with T. Higgins, it's like, what else can this guy do? So I think at the 101 spot, he's on an offense that you feel confident about of creating scoring opportunities. Joe Burrow is of the top shelf quarterback, so there's no real fear there. All the fear goes into health, people. That's all the real fear that I have with Jamar Chase in this Bengals offense. And when I say health, not necessarily Jamar Chase, but in Joe Burrow, who has that type of history as well. Now, usually there is a running back at the 101 spot, and I would not be mad if we swap the player who is usually at that 101 spot at that running back position to be Saquon Barkley as the first running back off the board, as the first player off the board with his historic season. I mean, it's been fun and amazing to watch him run all the way to the Super Bowl, putting running backs back on the map of why you need to pay these guys, because you can run a offense through a running back and it can get you back to the big dance. Now, it's all about what are we going to do at that 101 spot with Saquon Barkley. I feel like you can definitely build a healthy roster, being that wide receivers are still going to be crazy off the board. But on that back end of that second round, I think you can make a nice comparison with a wide receiver 1 who's on an elite offense and should be able to produce at wide receiver 1 levels with Saquon Barkley as your number 1 pick off of the draft board. Now, my only pushback for Saquon Barkley, if there is a con to this, is that he may have a Super Bowl hangover, maybe a slow start, not a complete drop off or anything like that in talent. I do think he's going to be in that upper echelon of 16 to 1700 rushing yards. And I honestly think he's not going to be back in that 2000 yard range, but maybe even more effective. Now, in the craziest of universes of possibilities that AJ Brown moves on, maybe Saquon gets a boost in PPR leagues. I don't know. That just seems a little, hot take-ish or crazy to think that AJ Brown would leave the Eagles for any other team right now after making it to the Super Bowl. But overall, Saquon Barkley, I wouldn't be mad at him as a guy that you take off the first pick off the board. I mean, he's such a good guy, man, and he trains hard. I mean, he reminds me of Goku in a way, just more intelligent, but more so looking at Saquon, he seems like a safe bet. He's healthy now. You don't really have to worry about the O-line being banged up or anything like that, because the Eagles have a few things that remain the same. They're the number 1 rushing offense, and they have a hell of a run blocking O-line that knows how to get the job done in the trenches. So Saquon, the first player off the board, not mad at it. Now, next up, this might seem like a hot take, and I'm not being biased for the Rams, but there could be a chance that Puka Nacua sits at that 101 spot. Now, there's some unknowns right now in the offseason. Now, Matthew Stafford at the time, undecided of his future at the Rams, but he says he could play a lot more football, so I'm just going to hang my hat that he's going to be returning back to the LA Rams in 2025. So this is great news for Puka Nacua. Now, with Cooper Kupp, he may be on the move this offseason, lack of production, but I think his lack of production has a lot to do with Puka Nacua being a star-studded wide receiver that he is. All the things that he's going out there doing just screams that he could be an alpha wide receiver. The only pushback I have on Puka at that one-on-one spot is obviously his health. But honestly, I'm worried about, more so what they're going to do with Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford than his health of picking him in the first round this year. But I think more so if he gets surgery this offseason and clean up that knee so he can come in healthy and we get, honestly, a clear mind of clarity of what they're doing with Cooper Kupp, why can't he see 140 and 150 targets? Because there's been a lot of games that even with Cooper Kupp creating separation or being available in the play, I've seen Matthew Stafford just hyper focus on Puka Nacua. So it's clear that he is the number one wide receiver out in LA, a primary focus, going to be targeted on crucial third downs and in the red zone. There's just a high ceiling opportunity here for Puka Nacua just hit his absolute peak this season to put up huge numbers, because I believe you can talk about him in the same breath as a Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase. This guy is going out there, putting everything on the line, making the diving catches. They call him Air Puka for a reason. So I think him at the 101 spot would not be crazy, be a little risky, but it would not be crazy for what could possibly open up for him in 2025. Now, next up, there is a reality where the consensus 101 pick goes to a running back of a familiar face that just feels like a comfort pick for a lot of players when they're drafting in the summer. Now, we're talking about all league levels here, people. Christian McCaffrey could be a 101 pick. All you need is good reports, positive reports coming from that camp saying that Christian McCaffrey is looking back to old, being that he's healthy now. Early January, he was just talking about being back to full health with his knee injury that he caught on the back end of the season. A PCL injury takes between 6 to 8 weeks, I believe, but he seems to be on track to be fine, to be cleared this offseason, to go back into camp and be the Christian McCaffrey that we know. But the question is he the Christian McCaffrey that we know of good health? Because, man, he's getting up there in age. Injuries seem to be catching up to him. We've seen this play out before with him leading the league in touches, scrimmage yards, touchdowns in 2019. And then that following season, he had some injuries catch up to him. And then that following season, more injuries caught up to him. We're right on track of the story. If you look at his first full season with the 49ers, what he led, touches, scrimmage yards, and in touchdowns. And then this past season, he's only played 4 games because injuries have been catching up to him. I'm not quite sure what this means for the consensus out there that are going to be taking the rolling the dice on Christian McCaffrey, because me personally, I'm staying away from him in the first round, but I felt as though I was obligated to put him in this video because there is a reality that he could go off the board at the 101 spot in some leagues. So this wraps up another great episode of RotoBaller Fantasy Sports YouTube channel. Please make sure you guys like and subscribe. Please leave a comment below on what you guys think of who will be the consensus 101 pick. And you guys can follow me at Real Deal Fantasy on all social media platforms. Until next time.